I'm John Stife here with Shaw Media, here with Kelly Bowles of the Daily Herald. We are doing endorsement interviews with the McHenry County Board. Kelly Duncan, reporter, is here with us as well. She's not part of the endorsement process, but she'll be writing a story on the McHenry County Board candidates. We'll give each candidate 2 minutes to answer each question that we have, and we'll go in order, starting with you, Mike Shorten. The first question is simply, introduce yourself and tell the public what's important to you in terms of priorities if you are elected to the county board.
Mike Shorten. I've lived in McHenry County since 2001, and my current home since 2003. I live here with my wife Cheryl and my 3 daughters, who have been very fortunate to raise in such a great area. I was involved in local politics up until 2017, and retired, backed out, and wasn't going to come back to it because the political atmosphere had gotten so divisive. It hasn't changed much, but I got a call at Ames Falls, and someone asked me to consider running, and I said no, but then decided that it was the right thing to do. So I stepped into it, and let's see, somebody's tie. And I'm running as a Republican to represent on the county board because I believe that McHenry County is a great place to live. I believe the county is fiscally solid, and I believe it's a safe place to live. And I want to keep it that way. So my priorities when you get on the board, and obviously they've changed from when I first decided to run to where they are now, but to help maintain the fiscal stability, and also support our law enforcement and our law and justice system to make sure that all citizens of McHenry are able to live a safe life, work, raise their kids, have the grandkids over, and live in the positive environment that we've lived in that I've been fortunate to live in for nearly the past 20 years.
All right, Joe.
Hi, thank you. This will be the 4th time I've run for the county board. I have been an incumbent now for the last 8 years. The things that I think that I'd like to see continue, first and foremost, is for the entire 8 years that I've been here, we have never ever even taken the cost of living increase. In addition to that, we've returned money to the taxpayers. Last year was $8 million just in the Valley High Fund, but in addition to that, we've had a permanent tax decrease of roughly 10% in terms of property taxes, in terms of what the McHenry County Board uses for property taxes to reduce that. And that's permanent in terms of we don't have the ability to go back and get it. If you understand the tax system, you'll see that every 3 years you can go back and try to grab the lowest or the highest level for the last 3 years. Because we lowered it longer than 3 years in a row, those things can't come back. I'd like to continue that policy of being a fiscal conservative. I think it's really important from the county's perspective that when you have one of the highest tax burdens in the country, that we work on getting that tax burden down, and we've done that. In the next 2 years, what I'd like to see happen is the county board has already voted to reduce the number of people that will be here after the census from 24 to 18. I was in favor of that. I'm actually in favor of lowering it further than that if I could. And the rationale is that there's really no reason for us to have that many people. I mean, Illinois has a very unique system. If you have 1 million people or more, you can only have 18. If you have less than 1 million people, you can have 24 members. That makes no sense to me. I've also seen other counties and other places that just simply don't need that many people to run what we do at the county. The county does some very, very important things. Everything from the sheriff to the tax collection to the health department. And if you haven't thought the health department is important, you're not paying much attention to news lately. It really is critical what we do. We are the link between the state and federal government and most citizens in McHenry County. So I would like to continue to help with that. Thank you.
All right, Jeff.
He's muted.
We'll go to Tom for a second here, and if Jeff can unmute, then he can go after.
All right, can you hear me? Okay. Tom Wilbeck, this is my second run at the county board. It'll be a short 2-year term, but I think over the past 4 years, the board has worked well together. I agree with Joe that we did vote to decrease the size of the board down to 18. And I agree that it should be going down to about 12. If you take a look at Lake County, they're at 18 and they're about 3 times our size. I also agree upon giving back the money in the Valley High situation. I think the taxpayers are owed that. We need to stem this outflow of people leaving the county and leaving the state. And by that, we have to lower our taxes. I think we also did well by putting in term limits. I think that should go on nationally, but we at least started countywide. And also we are now more transparent with webcasting the meetings so people can actually see what's going on in the county. I think we need to continue to keep an eye on the dollars. This year will be a tough year, but we could still keep a strong eye on it. I'm against wasteful spending. I was against the hiring of a lobbyist, which cost the county $200,000. We got nothing in return for that. So I continue over the next 2 years to do those types of things, work well with the other members of the board, try to make government smaller, listen to the people and vote accordingly. Thank you.
All right, Jeff, if you can unmute and then answer that question as well.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you, I'm going to assume that you can hear me. Can somebody wave or something? You can't hear me.
We can.
Oh, thank you. My name is Jeff Thorsen. I've been a lifelong resident of McHenry County, in particular Crystal Lake. I'm sorry? Am I going in and out? Can I call this in?
There you go, Jeff.
Can you? Okay. Well, wherever I left off, just wanted to introduce myself, let you know that I'm a lifelong resident, that I've lived where I live right now for pretty much my entire life. Very involved in McHenry County, and I have been for quite some time. And I really care about my my environment. I care about my county. I love Crystal Lake, and I love McHenry County, and I want to do what I can do to see to it that we continue in a fiscally responsible manner. I noted on our questionnaire my concern about the fact that we did reduce the levies. However, I think that we didn't, and we haven't really addressed the sustainability of maintaining those levels, those levy levels. And I really think that we should do our utmost to sit down to the table and sharpen our pencils and make sure that we can maintain the levels that we're at. I'm in no way in favor of raising those levy levels. So that's probably the most important thing to me right now. But I really want to be able to provide services to the county the way the county is used to, and I want to make sure that we can do that. It's a tough equation, and we've really got to face it, and I really feel we haven't. So that's what I'm looking forward to in the next 2 years. With regard to you know, my personal life, I'm an MBA. I got an MBA at Northern Illinois University. I've I've gone through the District 47 and District 155 school systems here in Crystal Lake, and I have also been in local government for 21 years. And I think I stand by my record. I do stand by my record on every one of those years and every one of those decisions. And again, I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Hey everyone, question number 2 is, what have we learned as a county from the COVID-19 pandemic, and what changes should be made looking forward as a result? And Mike will start from the COVID-19 pandemic.
I didn't hear who you're asking the question of.
Mike?
On the COVID-19, the thing that I think that we've learned is facts matter, and understanding, of course, it's been a challenging environment. A lot of data that's come through, and a lot of the direction that we've heard from the national and from the state level has been different on an ongoing basis. Facts matter. We had an instance early on when the discussion was about masks and whether people should wear masks, and Dr. Fauci was on a news program and told people that masks did not matter. He later came back and said that he lied about that because there was a shortage of masks. Dr. Ezike with the Illinois Department of Health on April 20th came out and pretty much said that they're counting anyone that died with COVID as a COVID death. They had to since go back and reconstruct their numbers. I think that the thing that we need to take away from all this is that, and I'm not certain that the measures that were taken were too much or too little, but I think we need to be more measured about the measures that we take and we address this, because we have small business owners that have been dramatically impacted. We had a music store in downtown Crystal Lake that closed September 1st because business was affected. We have restaurants right now that are surviving based on the fact that they can have people coming to their restaurants on the sidewalk, which is great until the temperatures drop to 20 degrees. So again, I think the thing that we need to be cognizant of is facts matter, and we need to make sure when we make dramatic decisions, such as decisions that were made in Springfield this past spring, that we need to make sure we understand the full impact of that. Obviously, there's going to be some long-term reverberations, and I'll talk about that at a later time.
Okay, Tom, same question to you.
Yeah, I think the county health department has done a really good job with the COVID pandemic. We do need more test facilities. The health department gives us an update at least on a monthly basis when we go into the face-to-face meetings. Valley High also, take a look at, if you take a look at the Valley High situation, I think they're doing a phenomenal job. The sad thing are the small businesses. We need to end this thing fairly quickly to keep them up and running. As Mike said, once the weather changes, people can't eat outside, and these restaurants have to succeed, and we've got to do something. We also need a few more testing areas for people. I think we're taking a look at the college, McHenry County College, to have some testing done there. But all in all, I think the county has done a good job, and it's the small business owners that are really paying the price, and we need to help them. Thank you.
Okay, and Jeff. You are muted, Jeff. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I couldn't hear the question either. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'll repeat the question.
Can you hear me now?
What have we learned as a county from the COVID-19 pandemic, and what changes should be made looking forward as a result?
Do it. I tried.
Were you able to hear it, Jeff?
No, I'm sorry. Something is really wrong on my end, and I apologize for that.
You might want to call in on
If
the
you can hear me right
invitation.
now,
There's a phone.
I'm just going to wing it,
number.
okay? Okay, I'm going to go do that, okay? I got to go back and get my phone, okay?
Okay.
You go
Joe, go ahead.
ahead, and I'll be back. I'll answer the COVID question if I'm allowed.
So first and foremost, I think we found some of the defects in the system are just like who's in charge of whatever we're going to be doing. I absolutely agree with Tom. The health department's been fantastic, but the health department also has no mechanism to enforce anything. So for instance, if somebody decides to have a 1,000-person party going on right now, there really isn't anybody to stop that, although the governor's edict and everybody said that's a bad idea. You know, there is no enforcement mechanism to follow any of these things. So that's one issue that I think that from a legal standpoint, we ought to take a look at some point in time and figure out who's actually in charge when we have a pandemic like this. The second thing that I see that concerns me is that things like testing, the fact that it's virtually impossible to get testing out here. We have 300,000 people in McHenry County, and yet we have no public testing facilities at all. If you're going to get a test in McHenry County, you either have to go out of the county or you have to go privately and hire somebody, and that doesn't make any sense to me that we'd have that many people here with no facilities. But as a general rule, I think we've done a good job on terms of trying to manage what we have. I also agree that it made no sense to me from the beginning that you could buy paint at the hardware store at Home Depot, but you couldn't buy paint at the local paint store. If it was safe to open Walmart, it's safe to open the little shopkeeper stores. And those shopkeepers are what really crushed our local economy. I mean, if you look at where we were at in January, McHenry County's job problem in January was we didn't have any people to fill them. Today, we're down about 13%, or we're at about 13% unemployment. It's a huge number, and it's hurt many, many people in the county. And I really don't think that there was a reason for it now that we look back over those 5 months. Because if you want to require people to wear masks and things like that, maybe we were short on them then, but half the masks are homemade anyway. We could have solved some of those problems without hurting all those people around us. But I do think, as a generally speaking, considering that there hasn't been a pandemic that we were familiar with in 100 years, that we've done the best we can, and really what's been a surprise situation for all of us.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Jeff, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Thank you very much. As far as the question, I need to hear it again. I apologize.
No problem. What have we learned as a county from the COVID-19 pandemic, and what changes should be made looking forward as a result?
Well, I think the first thing to keep in mind is it's a nouveau virus. It's something that I don't think anybody has. I know nobody has experienced or expected in their lifetime, and so I think the biggest thing that we've learned as a county, I think that we learned to work together, and we learned that we have to work together to to make sure that everybody is safe. You know, there's obviously going to be a lot of different viewpoints and different analyses going on when you're dealing with a nouveau virus. And it's very difficult to kind of try to determine what the truth and what reality is when we might be operating on one theory today and a new theory tomorrow, and yesterday's theory is blown out of the water. And so everybody, I think the biggest thing we need to learn is patience, and we need to, like I say, we have to work together. We're all in it together, and we have to be able to make sure from our perspective that we can facilitate the delivery of the resources that are needed to offset the detrimental effects of this virus. It's very concerning to me that I don't know if, well, I'm sure you know it. It was in your paper that the players bench closed their doors. And boy, I tell you, I remember the players bench from way back, almost time out of mind for me. And I know that's just a microcosm of what we're talking about here, but it's heartbreaking to see what's happening to small business in McHenry County, and anything that we can do to offset that, and you know, like refocus our buying habits, not through Amazon, perhaps not through Walmart, but through our local small businesses, and try to make a bigger effort to focus on them, to try to carry each other through this, because that's, I think, the only way that a lot of these businesses are going to survive. And frankly, I think that a lot of them are obviously not going to. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson that we have is how fragile the system really is.
All right, thanks. The third question we have, and we will start with Tom on this one, is when McHenry County is creating a budget, how should that process work, and how should the board be working with both the chairman and the staff?
Okay. Being a business person and being in management, what's normally done, sent down from the top, is what the goals of the budget should be. We really don't have those in the county to work that way. So how things should normally work is each department start with a zero basis budget and work up from there. Bring that over to the finance committee, have them weigh in on it per policy, which we just passed last month. Then bring that to the county board for a final vote. However, I think in the past, over the past 4 years, the chairman had the push to demand what the budget should be, where, and also where the cuts should be. Don't really know if that's the appropriate thing to do. I think it should come down from the county board, down to the finance department, down to the individual departments. So hopefully we'll take a look at this year's budget, see how that was set up, what the responses were, what it looks like. And I think they're meeting today on it with the finance committee. Hopefully it'll be a top-down situation, which it should be, and be very conservative. We have to take a look at the revenue situation this year, make sure that we could cut appropriately, and make sure that we have a balanced budget. Thank you.
And Jeff.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have, as I said before, you may or may not have heard it, we have done the cut 10 and a couple of subsequent cuts and a flat levy, I believe, in between. And you know, we are basically doing a lot of our budgeting by using our fund balances, utilizing our fund balances, which I don't criticize. I don't have a problem there. The problem that I see is to continue to do that. Obviously, our fund balances are finite, and we need to be looking at our fund balances as more of something we should start to be replenishing rather than, or if not replenishing, at least holding steady. And that is going to take some harder looks towards the expense side of the equation. And so I really believe that the budget process really has to take an approach of our, basic needs and wants, the difference therein. I agree with Tom that it's a bottom-up approach. The board itself should be reaching conclusions with regard to each and every department, and to some extent we do in our committees. And the board should also, not have a budget pushed on them, but should be building the budget as an entity. We are a representative form of government. We have various interests in various districts, financially speaking, and certainly it is very important that those voices are heard from the northwest corners of the county to the the southeast corners of the county. And the reduction, the reduction of discussion, or the elimination of discussion, or the vetoing, not true veto, but vetoing by controlling of budgets of agenda items and things like that, really serve to keep the dialogue off the table and away from the public ear. And that troubles me a lot, because we, again, as I say, we represent a whole bunch of various types of areas that have different mechanisms working. And you can just, all you need to do is look at the difference between District 1 and District 6, and you can see there's quite a disparate difference in how how we look at our livelihoods. And so from the budget standpoint, I really think that we really need to have public awareness, public input, but we really need to start at the committee level and with the departments and build the budget and stay within the constraints that we've already established. We've established the constraints. Now we need to live with them. That's the key. From the very beginning, James Kern.
I got to cut you off. You're past 2.5 minutes.
Sorry about that.
Hi. I would say the biggest difference that I have seen, at least, is what we did in the past versus what's done this year. In most years, the county weighs in and sets a budget policy, and they set that usually in February or March. And they do that with the idea that you take what your projections are for the upcoming year, and obviously they've changed dramatically since February, but you take your projections and you do your best to make certain that those projections, you then turn and say, okay, here's what we have to spend. And those projections are then handed down with our budget policy as to how we want to see that various departments try to meet that budget. If you count the chairman as a department, there's actually 28 departments at the county. So it's a lot of, you have to give them guidance. This year, because the chairman and the finance committee, and I don't sit on the finance committee, disagreed on the budget policy, we weren't able to put a budget policy forward until last week. And that's just the wrong way to do things. It's not giving guidance to the departments. So the departments took it on themselves to say, well, we'll do the same thing we did last year. That's not a very good way to manage things when you have a COVID crisis going on that has probably reduced our income as our tax revenues by somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. So those things have to be worked on together. The chairman is an important part of the budget process, but he's not the whole part of the budget process. The county board ultimately has to vote on a budget. They're the ones that actually have the votes. The chairman actually doesn't vote on anything unless there's a tie. So as a result, I think both have to work together. I was personally sorry that we ended up in a stalemate and that we had to override it, but that's what we had to do. There had to be a mechanism to get it forward. Thanks to what some of the other board members did, we had 16 people sign on to call a meeting and put the budget policy forward. And now at least the staff has something to say, this is what we're supposed to follow when we bring the budget forward. They'll be voting on that probably in November, which is when we normally approve the budget. Thank you.
All right, and Mike.
Thank you. If I'm elected to the board, this will be next year will be the first budget that I get to work through. I will say that I admire the process that they have at the county. I do take exception to the chairman and the role that he's inserted himself into. I believe, regardless of who the chairman is, in a representative form of government, and you have a finance committee which oversees that, and a county board that would have to vote on it. I served as a trustee in United Township for 4 years between 2013 and 2017. And one of the first meetings that I attended as an elected trustee, the supervisor came forward with a tax increase of, I believe it was 5%. And as a board member, I probably did a little bit of a dramatic bang on the table argument against it, but I asked them, I said, well, you're asking to increase taxes 5%, why? And the answer came back to, well, there might be something that we need to spend money on. And that was not satisfactory to me. I pushed for 4 years to get a committee process put in place, which I think is a better way to do it. So I like what I'm seeing at the county level. I think I do believe in zero-based budgeting. And I think we need to go to the departments, especially in the economic climate that we're in today, and ask them, okay, what do you need from a spend perspective that's vital to make sure that our sheriff's department is facilitated, our state's attorney's office, all the vital functions that we provide that help keep McHenry County a safe place to live, make sure that government's effective. Where do we find efficiencies, whether through technology or changes in policy? So that's kind of where I sit on that from a philosophical point of view.
Okay, thank you. Question 4, I'm sorry. Should on-duty McHenry County Sheriff's deputies wear body cameras, and what is the responsibility of the county board in making that happen? And Jeff, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, the responsibility of the county board, obviously we have to approve funding to do that. Also, I believe that there's a lot more involved in body cameras than, just the purchasing of them. There's training, there's policy issues with regard to potential privacy violations and things like that. And so I think it's a bigger apple that you're taking a bite out of than what really meets the eye when we first talk about it. So one of the things I think we should do as a county board is keep that in mind when we have the discussion. Now, I can't answer your question yay or nay because we really haven't had that in-depth type of discussion where I know exactly what the expenses. I've heard it's upwards of about $600,000 to equip our sheriff's office with body cameras, and that's before we get into the questions of policy and training and what have you. I do think it's very important. We do have video cams on our dashboards for the sheriff's vehicles, and we've had that for some time now, for about 3 or 4 years, I believe. And that does go a long way to provide the transparency that we're looking for. And truly, I think everybody wants to see as much transparency as possible, and especially in situations that are life and death like this. But at the same time, I think we really need to realize that potentially doing the cameras may not be the panacea that everybody is looking for, solving a problem that may or may not be solvable by the purchase of body cams. So again, I will tell you that until we really get into the nuts and bolts and the meat of that discussion, especially when we're considering a capital investment, potentially up to $1 million, perhaps more, I don't know. I really have to, be hesitant to commit one way or the other. So that's where I'm at this point on them.
Hey, Joe?
I'm not hesitant. As far as I'm concerned, body cameras protect officers as much as they protect the public. I think the officers ought to have the opportunity to protect themselves by having all of their information, their confrontations recorded. It helps them. It really does. There's nothing better than, you know, you have a cop. I believe that most of our sheriff's deputies are excellent deputies, but I think they should have the opportunity to prove that when those things are recorded. They're not, this isn't novel equipment. Is there training involved? There's absolutely training involved. I would like to see it done yesterday, not next week. I mean, I really truly think that they help officers as much as they help the public, and we ought to get with it. As far as doing it, yes, the county board has to approve it, but the sheriff's department has to agree to implement it. It really starts with the sheriff's department's request.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. I've taken a good amount of time to start to understand this issue, and there's more to it. My initial reaction was yes, absolutely. I'm still definitely open to it, but there are multiple concerns that need to be addressed. Number one is from a go point costs. I spoke to the sheriff, and based on the number of cameras that would need, the initial outlay would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 600,000, 650,000, which in and of itself is not necessarily a huge number, but then there's other cost factors that need to be considered in that. Number one, you have to pay for the cost of storage. The state of Illinois, per statute, requires that you keep 90 days worth of footage available. So if you can imagine the number of interactions that sheriff's deputies have with the police, or with the public, they need to store a large amount of footage. Secondarily, you need to have individuals, likely at the sheriff's office and also at the state's attorney's office, who you would have to pay to review footage. The sheriff estimated that he'd have to have 3 full-time employees to deal with FOIA requests, to review footage. If you ever done a FOIA request and seen redactions of lines on a document, the same thing has to take place in a video. There are privacy concerns, and on top of it, I've read 2 studies, one coming out of Washington, D.C. and one coming out of George Mason University, that showed that the expected impact of having these cameras, the body cameras available or active on police officers, didn't necessarily change behavior or change the number of police force usage. So there's a lot to consider. I am open to it, and I think that if we can come up with the right policy, make sure the costs are under control and understand what that means, I would be in favor.
Okay, and Tom.
Yeah, Jeff and I are both on the Law and Government Committee, and this was discussed a couple weeks ago. And currently it's not in the budget for the Sheriff's Department. It's not in next year's budget anyway. However, they are taking a look at what the process would be to get one, what the costs would be, applying for grants, etc. I agree with Joe. It helps both the citizens in that the citizens know that any type of stop is being recorded, and it also helps the police officer in that he knows that his actions are being recorded. So he should be on the up and up. And the same thing with the person who was stopped, that they should be on the up and up. So I'm a big fan of the body cameras. My son-in-law is a sergeant in a police sergeant in Berwyn. And further, we just approved some riot gear for the Sheriff's Department, and I think that's timely, and that's warranted also. So yes, I'm a fan. I'm for it. It's not in next year's budget, but hopefully it'll be in the following year's budget, and we'll get some grants for it. Did I lose you?
You're good.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. That's it. And this will be up on our websites in the coming weeks, along with your questionnaires. Thank you very much.
Thank you.